Okay, well, let's dive right into this conversation. So, one issue that I think is really common when it comes to the welcome talk is that a lot of times, whoever it is that's hosting your service, whether it's maybe an executive pastor, a communications director, there's some people who have like specifically service host. A lot of times whenever that communication happens, usually that's a person that's doing it on a regular basis and they can kind of get into the routine of things, which is great. But sometimes it causes that person to not always communicate very clearly, right? So they might tell a good story, or they might tell about things in ways that are good for the most part, but they're so kind of used to the rigmarole of it that the kind of the CTA or that, or the purpose of it kind of gets lost along the way. So I guess my question to you is, what does clarity look like when it comes to a strong welcome talk? And maybe how do you coach people, or what are some conversations that you've had to help people avoid like rambling or maybe over explaining? Because sometimes, they get really passionate about that one, announcement about the church potluck, and they talk about it for 10 minutes and
truly.
Yeah, and here we are. So how do people kind of overcome that, and how have you seen people coach people to do that?
Yeah, I think you can get the most clarity when you know your why. And so I think remembering why you have a welcome talk, like what that moment is for and who it's for. So it's really not for your regular attenders, your members, your event. Like that is for the first time guest, the person who's not sure what's happening. They're not sure if they belong there. Like when you can remember that moment is really for them, then I think that can clarify a lot of your messaging. So that's a lot of what we're talking to people about, is like those first few minutes you have to really welcome people and share something needs to land really well with someone who's new, someone who's unsure, someone who feels like they don't belong. I know the temptation to like give all the announcements. I know how important like the events and the programs are, but someone did not show up at your church for the first time for an event or for a program. Like that's what we have to remember. We have to remember that they're showing up looking for faith that they've lost, or community they want to be a part of, or they've transitioned, and we have to just hit them right where they are. And so, we have our first impressions team that do all this work, getting people's, guards to go down a little bit. They feel welcome. They go into the room and like, okay. But then if we get up and we don't really help answer any of those questions, and we just overwhelm them with like stuff, they can just tune out. So I think clarity comes when you know your why, and for more in this, it's your who. So just remembering that it's for those first time guests.
Yeah, that's great. And I think even with that, what would you then encourage if once somebody hones down their why, right? If they've never practically tried to plan for their welcome talk, what are just maybe some practical preparation steps that they can take in doing that? Because I think that there's a lot of hesitation that people have because, depending on your church context, you might want, the presentation to look a certain way. And so there's certain things that you steer clear of. Like, I know that there's, I went to a church that had a rule that like, nothing can be in your hands on stage except a mic. Like, and so they didn't want you holding a card. They didn't want you holding anything. Okay, cool. But we have 7 announcements. How do I remember that? You know what I mean? With like all kinds of like CTAs, all of that.
Yeah.
So if we could just speak to the practicality of that, of like, how do you actually like prep? What does that look like?
Yeah. We had a script. And it really didn't change that much week to week. And it was quite brief. Now, I know the way that this gets fleshed out in a variety of contexts is going to be different. So I think that there's also, we can get into this more a little bit later, but there can also be a difference between that first welcome and then maybe some other things that you need to touch on later in the service. And I actually think it can be powerful when they're separate moments. When you think about that initial welcome and trying to, we always said, we're trying to answer the questions that they are too afraid to ask. So maybe they've never been in a church before, or they've never been in a church like yours. And some churches are very traditional, and you stand up at certain times and you sit down or you pray certain prayers. And they have no idea what's going on. Right. So just trying to give a little bit of like hey, we see you. We recognize that this isn't normal for you, and we are okay with that. We're going to speak to that, right? We're trying to eliminate some of those fears of like, I don't belong. So we're saying it's okay to be a little clueless. We're actually going to tell you what to expect a little bit.
Yeah.
So our welcome talk was always really short. And it was always like, hey, we're so glad you're here. If it's your first time, we're so happy to welcome you.
Yeah.
After this, we're going to do this, this, and this. And then we're going to do this. And then we're going to be done. Like we literally just like gave them a little lay of the land.
Yeah.
And I think you just can like
Yeah.
sense that people can exhale a little bit. They know what to expect. So
Yeah.
I think that that's a powerful thing. Let scripts be your friend. And I know like as pastors and communicators, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Like we have things on our hearts, we have things on our minds, we can explain them really well. But this is, you have a lot of other opportunities to do that. This is one of those moments like have your script, practice it, get up there. It can be the same every week because people are the same every week. And that's who it's for. Remember your who.